Happy International Women's Day. As we celebrate International Women's Day on March 8, the challenge and urgency of achieving gender parity still remains. Because gender parity will not happen by accident. It is a collective challenge. All the stakeholders, employers, governments, academic institutions, and men and women themselves have to play an active role in creating change. So while governments and employers will do their bit, how can we build partnerships with men? How can we engage men as key players in ensuring gender parity? Clearly, by sensitizing them to the complex issues of workplace. Let me give you an example. A friend of mine, an HR manager herself, narrated this incident to me. Once, she was discussing with her senior colleague the prospective employment opportunities for his daughter, who had just finished her MBA. They hammered out the brand and reputation of every company under discussion. And then she asked him, would you want her to join a company which treats women differently or have lower expectations from women? And suddenly, sitting across the table, listening to her openly talking about an organizational bias of a certain company, he became aware of two things. First, the organizational bias about women in most companies and his lack of awareness about it. As a result, his change of mindset happened most unexpectedly. So women need to do this more often. They need to talk about issues that will make the invisible bias visible. And from that day on, she could enlist his support on women's equality. So if men are convinced about the benefits that women can bring to the table, then it will be easier to garner their support. Research has shown that women bring diversity, innovation, revenue, and ethics to the board. But in run-up to the board, they need organizational support and flexibility in how, when, and where they do work when they launch their families. This will help the organization in retaining talent and bringing down the attrition rate. Men also need to be invited to contribute to the development of family-oriented policies that are not only good for women, but also good for business. They can also act as influencers on issues of gender parity and women's equality. Have you noticed how organizational patterns mirror societal patterns? Gender inequality in society is reflected as gender inequality at work. It is paradoxical that today's workplaces represent 21st century challenges, but societal expectations from women belong to the 20th century. And this puts tremendous pressure on working women. This needs to change. And for that to happen, we need to plant the seeds of change in the early years. New age parents need to groom their children well because they will be raising kids who will be someone's future boss or an employee or someone's spouse. So they will not be respected unless they learn to be respectful. So early on, young boys and girls need to be trained in homemaking just as they need to be trained in career making when the time is right. This will help in reducing discriminatory practices in the future. In short, we want cultural transformation and government action. We need change in values and change in policies. Gender sensitivity is the watchword here, not gender alone. Because patriarchy is not a trait of men alone. It is therefore important to include women in policies, practices, and programs at work, but it's not at all about excluding women. Men have to be engaged in creating change and more equal world. Thank you.